So with the release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy is now complete, so I figured it'd be a perfect time for me to rank all three of the Guardians movies from the worst to the best. Of course, this is just my opinion. I love to see your ranking. Drop a comment down below. I am also going to integrate my Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 review into this video. I was originally going to do a full review for the movie, but time kind of got away from me. There are a lot of things that were preventing me from recording for a while, and it's kind of too late to do that, so I figured I would just integrate it into this video once we get to my placement of that movie on this ranking. And I enjoy all three of these movies to varying degrees. Obviously, spoilers for all three of them. And to me, easily coming in at number 3 is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, I enjoy this one quite a bit, but it is to me easily the most flawed of the three Guardians movies, and it is the one that I have the most criticisms of. My main one being the tone. I don't think they balanced the tone very well. A lot of the humor was very mean-spirited, especially the Drax making fun of Mantis's appearance. The whole movie without her firing back just felt kind of gross to me, and then a lot of the humor, while funny on its own, was not timed very well and undercut dramatic moments. The biggest example I can think of is when Ego reveals to Peter that he's the one that put the tumor in his mom's head that ended up killing her, and then Peter shoots him, and 5 seconds later he turns into David Hasselhoff, and we're doing a David Hasselhoff joke. That really undercut the dramatic reveal that had just happened, so you can't do that. You can't time your humor that way. It doesn't work, at least for me, and that dragged the movie down quite a bit. That's something that they tended not to do in the other two Guardians movies, tend to balance that a lot better, but this one, a lot of the humor undercut the dramatic tension and undercut the seriousness of the scene that was supposed to be very serious, so that bugged me quite a bit. And then on top of that, there isn't really much of a central conflict or much momentum for a good portion of this movie. It kind of meanders for a while until we get to the third act where it's revealed that Ego is the main villain. Not a big fan of Ego. I like Kurt Russell, just Ego didn't really do much for me. The Gold people are even worse. However, all that being said, there is still a lot to like about this movie. A lot of the humor, despite some of it not being timed very well, does very much work. I laugh throughout this movie. And it maintained the heart of the first one, which to me is definitely the most important thing. I still love these characters. I still love their interactions with each other, and they further a lot of their arcs, especially Peter, to where he finds his real dad and then comes to the realization that he had his family and his dad in Yondu all along. Everything they do with Yondu in this movie is excellent. They really flesh him out and dig into him as a character and how he ticks. His conversations with Rocket are great, and his ultimate sacrifice to save Peter, one of the saddest deaths, maybe the saddest death still in the entire MCU. Just the way he goes, the music, Peter's speech afterwards, and then the funeral. Great stuff. This movie ends on a very high note. Soundtrack is good, not quite as good as the first one, but a movie that I have some issues with, but I definitely still enjoy. Coming in at number 2 is going to be the New Kid on the Block, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, this one I thought was a very emotionally satisfying conclusion to the Guardians trilogy. Does great stuff with the characters. All these characters have their arcs come to a sufficient end and have a satisfying payoff to them. Rocket's backstory is incredibly tragic and emotional. I mean, you see all of the disgusting things that High Evolutionary does to him in order to achieve the perfect society. High Evolutionary is a good villain. I'm not quite as high on him as a lot of people seem to be. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about like he's as good as or better than Thanos, which that is just bizarre to me. I don't quite see that because he is pretty one-dimensional. However, he's very effective in that they really get us to hate him because of everything he does to Rocket, and we really want him dead and defeated by the end of the movie so that when he does end up getting defeated, it's incredibly satisfying. You get Rocket's friends, Lila, Teefs, and Floor, who are just such great, likable characters who are very naive and kind of innocent, and they get us to care about them so quickly. And then when they end up dying, that's incredibly tragic. And the scene where Rocket almost dies and he sees them in heaven is incredibly emotional. I've teared up both times I've watched the movie. And then you get some great stuff with Peter as well, to where he finally goes back to see his dad. Drax gets a great end to his arc, to where he realizes that this whole time he was meant to be a dad, and that was told to him by Nebula, who also starts like this new society. And Mantis goes off on her own, and finally starts firing back at Drax. The humor really, really lands in this movie. All the character dynamics, all the humor that comes between their interactions works so well and is timed well. Doesn't undercut the dramatic moments like James Gunn did in Guardians 2. He let these serious moments sit, which I think is part of what makes this movie work so well. And something that I was a little bit mixed about on first watch, but as I've thought about it more and after watching it again, I think I'm more positive on it, is the Gamora stuff. Now, at first I thought maybe they would have been just better off leaving her dead, and that could still be the case. However, I think that James Gunn did the best he could have given what he was handed, what happened in Infinity War and Endgame, to where the original Gamora died, then they brought back the one from 2014. He had to find a way to integrate that into his movie, and I think he did as good of a job with that as he possibly could have, to where it kind of helps Peter's arc, helps Peter realize that his Gamora is gone, he's never going to get her back, and then that's what ultimately leads to him going back to reunite with his grandfather. Great stuff. So I thought that Gunn did as good of a job with that as he possibly could have. Not a fan of Adam Warlock in this movie. I thought he's pretty badass in the opening scene. Everything after that just kind of felt like he just showed up and then ended up redeeming himself in the end, which I don't know if that was earned, didn't quite feel earned to me. And I don't really understand exactly what he was trying to do at certain points in the movie, what his motivations were. So it kind of felt like Gunn had teased him at the end of Volume 2, so he's like, oh shit, I got to find a place for Adam Warlock in this movie, and he just kind of had to find a way to shoehorn him in there. Didn't feel like he naturally fit within the movie. I think that Will Poulter's performance was good, but the way they utilized him did not really work for me. Soundtrack was unremarkable, I'd say, especially compared to the first one. I mean, there's a couple song placements I can think of, especially No Sleep Till Brooklyn, which I think was absolutely phenomenal. Way better placed than it was in Super Mario. And I also love the placement of The Dog Days Are Over. I thought that was a great way to conclude these characters' arcs and end off this movie and trilogy. So this is a movie that I probably won't rewatch quite as much as the first one, but it is a damn good movie and a very satisfying way to end this trilogy and these character arcs. Easily coming in at number 1 is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy, the original one. This movie just absolutely captured lightning in a bottle, and it was going to be very difficult to replicate it. I mean, you take these ridiculous characters, a talking raccoon, a talking tree that only says 3 words, and in theory, that sounds absolutely crazy. A lot of people, including myself, when they announced this movie, were like, what the hell, this is going to be so stupid. What is Kevin Feige thinking? Then we watch it and we're like, oh, this is awesome. I mean, from the first scene, not the very first scene, but once Peter starts dancing and listening to Come and Get Your Love, like, okay, this is what we're in for. This is going to be so cool. And then the introduction to all these different characters who have like their own personalities and their own sense of humor.
What a bunch of a-holes.
And then coming together elevates all of them. You get the humor from Drax, which was completely unexpected, to where he takes everything so literal, and that makes for just incredible humor all throughout the movie. The humor, for the most part, was really well timed in this one, something that Gunn faltered with in the second movie, but the balance was really good. These characters, I mean, I love them so much, and it was a great introduction to them. Peter Quill, Rocket, they get all fleshed out throughout the other 2 movies, but they get you to care so much about them just in this one movie, to where the We Are Groot line at the end will get anyone to tear up, even the darkest of souls. Like, that'll touch people who will go watch movies and just never get emotional at all. Like, if that scene doesn't touch you, you have no soul. I mean, that is just incredible stuff by James Gunn to get us to care about all these ridiculous characters in such a short amount of time. The soundtrack is phenomenal. Maybe one of the best soundtracks, or at least the best use of his soundtrack in a movie that I've ever seen, to where he's using his Walkman and listening to it within the context of the movie, but it also works just as the soundtrack while we're watching the movie as well. So much about this movie works. So quotable, so funny, so memorable. The action is good. It's colorful. It's vibrant. The one problem I have is the villains. Ronan is a terrible generic villain. And then Nebula, I really came to like her as the franchise went on, as the MCU movies and the Guardians movies went on, and she kind of had a character arc which fleshed her out a lot more and got me to care a lot more about her. In this movie, I just thought she was way too over the top and generic. Same problem as Ronan. So the only thing keeping this from being like a top 5, maybe even top 3 MCU movie for me is the villains, which are very lacking. Everything else in this movie absolutely works. They captured magic with this one, and it is so memorable, and I can watch it over and over. So Guardians of the Galaxy comes in at number 1. So there you have it, guys. There's my ranking of all 3 of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, from the worst to the best. What is your ranking? This is just my opinion. I want to see your ranking. Drop a comment below. Let's start a conversation. And if you enjoy my video, hit the like button. Likes are so important for pushing my videos out to more people, help me grow my channel. If you enjoy my content in general, subscribe, hit the notification bell to get notified when I post a video. Stay tuned. I got more MCU stuff and more content in general coming. I will see you soon.